Hey everyone, welcome to Logan's Mosh Pit. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor and please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a lot for tuning into a new episode of Rock and Read. Today we'll pick up where we left off with Chapter 5 of Set the Night on Fire by the lead guitarist of the Doors, Robby Krieger. Without further ado, let's check out Chapter 5. They took Romalar cough syrup off the shelves in the 70s because too many teenagers were abusing it. In 1964, I was one of those teenagers. One night when I was on break from Menlo, I happened to be buzzing on Romalar with Bill Wolf, my brother Ronnie, and some other friends when the cops kicked in the door. They didn't care about us or our cough syrup. We just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The wrong place being a random dealer's house. The wrong time being the night the dealer tried to sell 2 kilos of pot to a couple of undercover narcs. I had 2 bags of weed in my underwear, but even after 2 separate searches, the cops missed them. Later that night, while spending time in a Hollywood holding cell, I asked my cellmate Wally what I should do with the weed. He said we might as well smoke it, since it would probably be his last chance for a long time. The obvious odor somehow didn't alert the guards, but it did make our other cellmates insist that we share. All in all, not a bad night. But my parents were not pleased. This was exactly the type of stuff that made them send me to Menlo in the first place. My dad was furious when my name and my brother's name, or more to the point, our family name, popped up in an article about the bust in Santa Monica's Evening Outlook. As angry as my dad was, he still helped my brother and me out. He hired a big-time lawyer named Grant Cooper, who would later go on to defend Sir Han. It was major redundancy for our meager little bust, but it worked. Even though we had just turned 18, Grant Cooper convinced the court to try us as juveniles. We got probation. We didn't know the dealer personally. We were taken to his house by a guitarist we had met on the Sunset Strip, who offered to sell us a couple of ounces. When the drama was all over, Grant Cooper left us with some sage advice. Stop hanging around with musicians. My parents may have hated the trouble I got into while hanging around with musicians, but that didn't mean they hated music. My dad had an impressive record collection. Lots of boogie-woogie 78s by black artists, records that probably wouldn't have been found as readily in the other houses in our upscale Pacific Palisades neighborhood, and lots of classical symphonies and John Philip Sousa marches. In fact, my love of music was born the first time my dad played me Prokofiev's orchestral Peter and the Wolf soundtrack when I was little. Stuart Krieger was a serious man. Bald, suits, drove a Buick. Basically a living, breathing clip art image of a 1960s dad. He went to school for aeronautical engineering at UCLA and Caltech and worked with defense contractors to design airfoils for military aircraft. Quite a few Nazis met their end thanks to planes my dad helped build, like the Lockheed P-38 Lightning and the Northrop P-61 Black Widow. He also worked on early versions of Northrop's Flying Wing and was part of the team at the top-secret Skunk Works facility. Later, he started his own engineering firm, Planning Research, which was successful enough to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange, at which point he upgraded his Buick to a silver Maserati Ghibli. He worked long hours to give his family a comfortable life, but he also made time to coach my Little League baseball team. We got along well when I wasn't being detained by the police, but he was the textbook definition of square. I respected and loved him. I just never wanted to become him. Marilyn Krieger was the yin to my father's yang. She dyed her hair blonde and did everything she could to emulate the look of her idol, Marilyn Monroe. While my dad listened to Sousa, my mom listened to Sinatra. While my dad spent all his free time on the golf course, my mom painted and taught me how to work with oils. She also taught me what little she knew about piano. Her repertoire was limited to a single song called My Dearest Dear from a 1939 British musical, which she played and sang beautifully. She loved discovering new music on the radio, and most significantly for me, she discovered Elvis. His Hound Dog single with Don't Be Cruel on the B-side was soon on very heavy rotation in our house. I can't possibly complain about the environment I grew up in. It was a healthy balance of art and science. And it was a life of privilege and financial security. Living in Pacific Palisades, an affluent suburb just north of Santa Monica, meant safety and serenity and early access to the beach. The doors in our neighborhood were never locked. My brother and I hitchhiked up and down the coast without fear of abduction. We'd stay out skateboarding well after dark, and our parents never worried. My family even had a regular cleaning lady and a part-time cook. We made Beaver Cleaver look like Sid Vicious. So like any teenager with nothing to rebel against, I rebelled. Menlo was supposed to straighten me out, but it was the first place I tried pot. My friend Scott, the kazooist from the Back Bay Chamber Pot Terriers, imported some stuff he called boo from his friends back in New York. We didn't know it was pot at the time. It had this enigmatic name, and we smoked it out of these ornate opium pipes we picked up in Chinatown. When the high hit me, I burst into a giggling fit because I imagined myself as a king, with everyone else in the room as my subjects. I don't know why that was so funny, but I couldn't stop laughing. Boo was a perfect way to cause mischief without causing any property damage, but like all my other forms of adolescent rebellion, it caught up with me. After Bill Wolf and I graduated high school, we were driving around in his car when some cops tried to pull us over. Wolf had an ounce of weed on him and asked, "What do we do?" Referencing an old joke about the Lone Ranger and Tonto, I said, "What do you mean, we, white man?" I was stoned. It seemed funny at the time. I told Wolf to stick it in his pants, having learned from my previous experience that they may not check there, but in a panic, he tossed the weed out the window instead. The cops saw it, of course. We ended up at the West LA police station, scared as all the officers on duty messed with us. "Get the scissors, guys! We got some long hairs here! We're gonna have some fun!" We were transferred to the men's jail downtown, stripped and sprayed with a delousing agent, and stuffed into stiff, ill-fitting uniforms. We were told that since we had a previous record from our other bust, we'd get at least 2 years. There was no laughing or smoking with cellmates this time. It was just me, lying on my rack in the dark, thinking about what it would really mean to be locked in a cell for 2 full years of my life. Fear kept me awake all night. The walls, the bars, this time it was all real. And then the next morning, they gave me breakfast and let me out. It was a lucky break. They knew it was Bill's car, and they saw him throw the weed, so they prosecuted him and didn't bother with me. Thankfully, he avoided jail time, but it was a wake-up call about the potential consequences of petty rebellion. I drastically cut back on my weed use after that, and never carried it around for fear of getting busted. I still wanted to experiment with substances that could help me achieve new perspectives, but from then on, I would find ways to do it legally, like with LSD. About 50 years after Wolf and I got busted, two police officers approached me in the Austin airport when I was flying home after a gig with my group, the Robby Krieger Band. The airport cops sternly informed me that their dogs had sniffed out a small amount of pot in the golf bag that was among my checked luggage. It had probably been in there for months, stuffed in the corner of some pocket, long forgotten about. I showed the cops my medical marijuana card. They thanked me and moved on, for the times they are a-changin'. Well, that's the end of Chapter 5. Let me know what you thought of this chapter in the comments below. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Till then, rock on.